Meeting of the Oregon Criminal Justice Commission. My name is Paul Solomon and I am the chair. We have a pretty packed agenda today, so we're going to jump right in. Do you want to start with roll call, Jenny?
Sure. Commissioner Beach?
Present, and my apologies, I will be probably off camera most of the time. I'm at a conference in a hotel room and having difficulty with Wi-Fi and internet connection.
Okay.
Commissioner Freeman?
I am here today.
Commissioner Harris?
I'm here.
Commissioner McPherson? Commissioner Norton?
I'm here.
Commissioner Perosa?
Present.
Chair Solomon?
Present.
And Commissioner Lewis? And Commissioner Przonski? All right, looks like we do in fact have quorum.
Great. And I believe we have some folks signed up for public comment today.
We do. We have 3 so far. It looks like first on our list today is Abby Bowman.
Great. Well, let's go ahead and get started. As a reminder, we're limiting public comment to 3 minutes, but welcome the thoughts from those who have signed up. So, Abby, if you're available. Let's come back to Abby, who is second on the list.
We can, Paul. It looks like she just joined us. So Abby
Okay.
Bowman, since you're just joining us, we're going to go ahead and skip to Scott Smith.
Great.
Thank
Scott, you with us? Scott, are you able to join us? Do you see that Scott's logged in? Jenny?
I do not see him logged in yet. So let's go ahead. If Abby Bowman is ready, we can go ahead and go back to Abby.
Okay, great.
Thank you. And apologies, I had a little bit of trouble logging in, so my apologies. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Abby Bowman. I am the manager of Clackamas County Resolution Services. We submitted a grant proposal for the 2025-27 Restorative Justice Grant Award. Our application was determined to be one of the top 3 by the CJC staff and then was determined ineligible during the Grant Review Committee dialogue and feedback period. We appreciate the transparency provided by the CJC in streaming the Grant Review Committee deliberations. During that meeting, we observed what appeared to be clear inconsistencies in the scoring process as it was applied across grant applicants. We observed what seemed to be an unclear process as to how the Grant Review Committee was making their determinations and a lack of clarity in how the change in ranking amongst applicants were determined. We observed on multiple occasions the CJC staff reminding the review committee of their responsibility to be consistent across all applicants. We observed what appeared to be the review committee being reluctant and failing to commit to this requirement. If this hasn't already been done, we request that the commission and the CJC staff examine the review committee's deliberations closely to determine whether they meet the standards of the commission. Specifically, we request the consideration of whether the posted scoring rubric was consistently used by the review committee to make their decisions and recommendations. We request that if the commission and the CJC staff do find that the process was unclear, not tied to the scoring rubric, and or not used consistently, that the commission not approve the review committee recommendations and have the proposals re-reviewed using the required scoring rubric. Thank you for these considerations and hearing our requests. Please let us know if you'd like us to provide any examples.
Great. Thank you, Abby. Who do we have up next?
I believe Scott Smith has joined us.
Okay.
So if he's ready.
Sorry I'm late. Thank you for that. I will read less than I planned to because Abby brought up a lot of relevant points that I am glad you all are considering. For the record, my name is Scott Smith. I'm the Director of Restorative Justice at Neighbor to Neighbor, which is the community dispute resolution serving Marion, Lynn, Benton, and Yamhill counties. And I think I will just take a very short time to mention two specific issues of concern around how the recommendations were developed. Abby alluded to the ranking scheme that was sort of built during the meeting and was clearly confusing to people. What was troubling to me was the absence of the question, given that we have a limited amount of money and applications that would total much more than the available for allocating, what would be the best value in our communities of spending this money? So there was only room for scoring applications in different ways and then running with percentages, and never a question of value for cost in our communities. I might just, I'm glancing at my notes because I do get to cut out most of it. I might just leave it there. Yeah. Yeah, thank you. It turns out that a much longer piece of feedback of mine, I think, has been included in the public record and delivered to commissioners. So I do acknowledge that this program functions differently than most of the grant programs that the CJC administers. I think usually the applicants are counties, and specifically County LIPSCs, and that there's often a formula. So it makes sense to me that there were struggles in developing a process that was appropriate to a different applicant pool. But I do join Abby in urging a reconsideration of the process that brought us to the recommendations. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Scott. And we did receive your written testimony, and that was shared with commissioners. All right. Who do we have up next?
Our last person signed up today is Elaine Walters.
Welcome, Elaine.
Well, thank you. Well, I am one of those grant advisory committee members, and I also I want to acknowledge that it's been an honor to serve with an incredible group of people. And of course, it was really different when we had funding that was exploratory and set up for pilot, and really enough funding to not only fund, but even add funding to support the programming that was being developed across Oregon. I just cannot overstate the beauty and importance of restorative justice. I agree with what Scott said and also what Abby said, that despite the clear efforts, I think we may have differences of opinion about how we got to the struggle that we got to. It is clear to me that the CJC staff worked really hard to create some sort of a framework for us to think through these decisions that we were tasked to make. But I am also feeling quite uncomfortable with the process and the outcomes of our last meeting and the recommendations before you today. Because we found the guidance and the proposed process confusing out the gate, we spent an inordinate amount of time at the beginning of the meeting just trying to land and get our feet up under us. And then we did not get to consider the question that Scott also mentioned about the sort of cumulative or potential value or harm that could be done in the way we made our decisions. And so in the end, we were very rushed. We ended up during the process contradicting and changing some of the recommendations that CJC staff had made based on our best thinking and the reading of the applications. This included changing some of the scoring and some of the rankings. We also didn't have time to talk about or consider the differential impact of the across-the-board reductions or the recommendations and how they could potentially impact the programs or the communities that they served. We also didn't have enough time or information to consider how well any of the programs are doing and whether or not some of the proposals actually were more pilot focused than sort of ongoing. So we didn't get to consider any of that. And we actually extended the meeting. I had to leave at 1 o'clock. The published timing for the meeting was to end at 1 o'clock. Because we were rushed, the meeting got extended and I had to leave. So I didn't even get to sort of weigh in, and I apologize and take responsibility for not sort of calling a big stop sign before that happened. But I don't feel good about the process. I can't tell if I feel good about even half of the recommendations. And I think even though it will slow down and maybe disrupt some of the work that these decisions are too important to sort of rush through. So I would very much favor sort of a redo or a reconsideration of these proposals in good faith, with a really good team of people working to get some consistencies and some thoughtfulness on the table. Thank you.
Thank you, Elaine. And I believe that's all the folks that we have signed up, Jenny?
Yes, it is.
Okay, great. Well, we will take up the restorative justice grants in a little while, but our first item on the agenda is the behavioral health deflection grant award decisions, and I believe Casey is going to present on that.
Indeed. I just want to clarify and ask, is the presentation fully loaded? Can you see it, Paul?
Yep.
Okay, wonderful. Good afternoon, members of the commission. For the record, my name is Casey Beck, and I am the CJC's Behavioral Health Program Manager. As Chair Solomon mentioned, we're here today to talk about the Phase 1 applications and make some award decisions. Today's main objective is to review and determine whether to approve the 25-27 biennium BHD program proposals and to award the Phase 1 formula allocations. To get there, I plan to walk you through the process and timeline overview, general roles and responsibilities of both staff and commissioners, eligibility and requirements regarding the programs and applications, a general overview of the applicant pool, review the applicant funding table, and then leave it to commissioners for those award decisions for the 2025 to 2027 BHD Phase 1 applications. So first, to an orientation as to where we are in terms of the BHD process and timeline. Thought this would be a good place to start. So you may be familiar with this slide, or at least the timeline at the bottom, and you'll see that our arrow has continued to make progress. We are now in the middle of September. You're at the Yellow Commission meeting. Congrats on making it sort of halfway through the BHD process. The solicitation for Phase 1 was open July 30th through August 31st, 2025. The applications and relevant budget materials were sent to commissioners on September 2nd. And award decisions are slated to be made today, with our goal to begin that contracting process, which is that Phase 1 CNTR period abbreviation, Phase 1 contracting process in early October. And the goal here was really to eliminate the possibility of a gap in funding for programs as they're, continuing operations throughout these months while we roll out this next iteration of BHD. And also on this timeline is the bit in blue, which is the projections work to begin informing the Phase 2 efforts. So you'll see that we're kind of in this perfect stars aligned moment where projections are also due this week on the 19th. Those are the behavioral health deflection participant projections that counties have been working on and meeting with our CJC researchers to develop projections for this biennium of the number of eligible individuals that would be eligible to participate in deflection in their jurisdiction, as well as the projection of folks they anticipate enrolling into deflection. So that is where we are in terms of time and space. And moving on to general roles and responsibilities, I wanted to kind of give you an overview of like what this phase 1 application entails versus what's left and remaining for phase 2, and then give you an overview of what has happened as part of this application review process, and then review the commission authority and responsibilities as it relates to these applications. So first, I want to provide a few more specifics about what this phase 1 is. So the phase 1 application must be completed in order to even be eligible for phase 2. So the folks you see here who will have submitted an application are the same folks that you will see as part of phase 2. There are going to be no new individuals coming in at that later stage. We ask that, as part of this phase 1 application, all of these proposed programs meet eligibility and application requirements, and that the program proposal captures all details and plans for the full biennium operation. So that project period is July 1st of this year, 2025, through August 31st of 2027. So encapsulating the entire biennium and then some. And that's what we're hoping to have this focus on as part of the phase 1 application process, is that program proposal. The budget is a necessary piece in grant making world, but for this particular phase 1 budget, it's limited to the phase 1 formula allocations. We'll go into a bit more details for reminders for this commission as to what that funding breakdown looked like. But again, this is a small portion of the total available funding for deflection in this biennium. And it's just unlocking this first small allocation. And that is what you will see reflected in the application budget projection sheets. As part of phase 2, we will have a new formula funding table that will be different than the one that was used for phase 1. The phase 1 was the same trusty old guy from last year, the Oversight and Accountability Council for the burn formula, and we applied that, and that's the formula funding table that you all approved the last time we met. For phase 2, this new funding table is going to be informed by the behavioral health deflection participant projections that I spoke about just a little bit ago, that folks are going to be submitting this week. And then staff, of course, intend to begin that review next week, and we intend to bring something to you all at the October 21st commission meeting to talk about what that formula looks like and what that new table will look like. As part of that phase 2 application, we are not intending to rehash the program proposal because we have that's solidified and it's approved. Phase 2 is really focused on what are you going to do, program, with your total award amount that is representative of your full biennium operation. So I also wanted to include here a quick reminder, for this commission and also for the audience in general. The total grant award floor amount was increased from House Bill 3069 to $300,000. And that includes the phase 1 and phase 2 application. So no recipient of the BHD grant for the 25-27 biennium shall receive less than $300,000 total. So in terms of application review, what CJC staff did between September 2nd and September 8th was to review all applications for completeness. Did things get filled out completely? Are the applicants themselves eligible to apply? And we reviewed all budgets for unallowable expenses as specified by the House bill, as well as the grant administration guide the CJC uses, the solicitation, et cetera. And then we, review the programs overall and are then bringing them to you today to further discuss this program proposal eligibility, and then ask you all to make the award decisions as to whether or not those are approved for operation? And is that allocation of phase one unlocked? In terms of the authority for this commission, that's established by House Bill 3069 and was effective as of July 1st for you all to be that decision-making body for BHD. And as mentioned, your objective today is to review and determine whether to approve the program proposals and award the phase one formula allocations. And I did want to remind you all that these are formula grants based on meeting eligibility criteria. So this is not a competitive application process. It's purely a formula grant. Are they eligible? And if so, their allocation. And then in accordance with House Bill 3069, Section 8, we have kind of 3 different areas of operation for you all in this decision-making mode today. Option A, you can approve an application for funding. Option B, you can return an application to staff to go seek further clarification from the applicant themselves or for further review and analysis. Option C, you can decline an application for funding based on specified ineligibility. So oh yes, Commissioner Freeman, I don't want to skip over your question.
I'll wait. Maybe you'll answer it during this presentation.
Okay, sounds good. I'll come back to you. So for eligibility and requirements, I want to walk you through what the applicant eligibility criteria is, what are the BHD phase one application requirements, and then give you all a reminder of what the definition of deflection programs is per House Bill 3069. So first, that applicant eligibility criteria. In order to be eligible for BHD funding, a program must be coordinated by or in consultation with a community mental health program, a local mental health authority, or a federally recognized tribal government. It must have a coordinator with the following program duties listed on this slide, and it must involve at least the following 4 partners: a district attorney, a law enforcement agency, a CMHP, and a burn. Staff have determined that all applicants for phase one meet these eligibility criteria. In terms of application requirements, a phase one application must be submitted by a county or their designee. So this is just a quick reminder that this is different than the tribal process that BHD also has that was completed for the last biennium. They're on kind of a different timeline. And the CGC does intend to enter into formal consultation with the tribes later to inform what their process might look like, what their desires and needs are in terms of the set-aside funding that you all made the decision for at the last time we met. So just a quick reminder that this is a separate process specific to counties for this phase one. So was this application submitted by a county or their designee? Did they answer all application questions? Did they include a complete budget projection sheet? And for those consortia applications, did all participating parties submit a phase one application? If you were a county that was designating someone else to be the primary applicant for your consortium, you still had to opt in and make that designation formally. So again, you'll see the green check mark up there. Staff have determined that all applicants met these application requirements. And then for program eligibility, grant requests must demonstrate how funds will be used to create community-based pathways to treatment, recovery support services, housing, case management, or other services. And for the most part, staff have reviewed and confirmed that this was met, but there will be an opportunity for commission confirmation on this particular aspect with some components that staff would flag for discussion. And I wanted to end this particular section with, again, just kind of that definition of deflection programs. So per House Bill 3069, deflection programs are collaborative programs between law enforcement agencies and behavioral health entities or community-based social service organizations that assist individuals who may have substance use disorder, another behavioral health disorder, or co-occurring disorders, and who often have other service needs to create community-based pathways to treatment, recovery support services, housing, case management, or other services. So again, just if you've seen this particular SAMHSA Gain Center sequential intercept model before on my slides, and it really talks about how individuals with mental and substance use disorders come into contact with and move through that criminal justice system as we know it. And the aim of deflection programs is to assist these individuals in this first two intercepts, kind of pre-court. But I wanted to flag that there may be some bleed over into that intercept 2 that we see as far as that initial detention, but really before that interaction with the court system. So Commissioner Freeman, I wanted to pause here and see if your question was answered, and if not, I'll be happy to do so.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If you'll indulge me, I'm appreciative of this work, and I'm really hoping it's going to be successful. With that being said, I think the only part of the application process that had any kind of feedback as to the effectiveness would really be the track and report. Is there any benchmarks that have to be required? Are we measuring outcomes in any way? Is there any idea or formation of a common measurement amongst the different programs that's happening? And I recognize this is all new. I'm just cautious and concerned that we're, putting this money out in good faith and not going to have a good way to measure if it's being effective or not.
Wonderful. Thank you for your question, Commissioner Freeman. So I guess there's two parts to this. The first part is, yes, all behavioral health deflection programs are required to report, and they report on a number of things in terms of how many folks they are encountering and referring to these pathways, which pathways, what the service needs might be, what the service needs, like which ones have been met, and how many of those individuals that were enrolled into their program are still in their program or have fallen out of their program due to a failure or have completed their program due to the success criteria defined by that recipient, so that jurisdiction. So
understand
yeah.
the reporting's there, but is there a requirement to get 10% through the program successful or 50%? I mean, is there any sort of a pass fail as part of the either this funding package or future funding packages, just so some kind of an expectation of are we getting anything for the dollars that's being spent? That's the question.
Yes. Okay. So for now, there is only the best practices report that has been published by the CJC in April of this year. But the legislature has required the CJC, kind of revisit that best practices and set standards, which I think is what you're speaking to here. And that standards report is due in February of 2027. So right now, the CJC is in its data collection mode, and we are allowing these programs to operate with the latitude that they've been given by the legislature to do their experimentation and see what works for their jurisdiction while we collect all of the data and then assess what's working to then create standards. And then it's obviously the big mega grant that the CJC is embarking on, this new adventure in 2027 to 2029 biennium. I think that's where that's going to come into play. And those standards that will have been set, we will be looking for adherence to those standards in that biennium. But at this moment in time, the standards have not yet been set.
Thank you.
Are
And
there any
Casey,
other questions? Oh,
well,
yes,
before you go on, I just want to chime in and echo some of the concerns that Commissioner Freeman raised. I understand that we're still in kind of the experimental phase, but I do have concerns about lack of definition around success, which we don't have. Each county is defining that on their own. And am really looking forward to the publication of the standards report and having more framework and structure and accountability to measure the effectiveness of these programs in the 27-29 biennium.
Thanks for your comment, Chair Solomon. I think that the standards report will be a really great stage to stand on and begin, really building that next iteration of the behavioral health deflection programs. And this current stage that we are in is challenging to kind of see what's sticking to the wall, more or less. And the counties that have been operating, are doing a decent job with all of the challenges that they're facing, but also with the flexibility they've been given in terms of seeing what fits.
And looks like we have a question from Commissioner Norton.
Yes, thank you. So it sounds like the standards report's going to be amazing, but it's not due until 2027. I'm wondering, just because accountability is important and close monitoring of a new program is important, if there is some data available. I'm not saying next week or next month, but in the short term, maybe some baseline, even if it's preliminary and we're going, just take it with a grain of salt, but just kind of, I think because this is a new program for us and we're having to look at who is successful, not successful, I think it'd be helpful for us just to get us maybe even comfortable with the language and some of the outcomes that folks are focusing on. Some maybe preliminary reports with, might be helpful in the meantime until we can get to that standards report, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Norton. I think that's a great idea, and I'd be happy to provide those kinds of updates to this commission. And I also would encourage anyone who's interested to take a look at the behavioral health deflection dashboard available on our website, which does provide an overview of referrals to deflection to date. And then we also have the possession of controlled substances dashboard, or PCS dashboard, which is also kind of like that month live view of the PCS arrests and cases filed the state's seeing. So those I think are good resources for interested folks in the meantime. And yes, the CJC is happy to give this commission kind of those updates and begin to familiarize you all with the language around deflection and with these programs, because this commission is new to being this decision-making body, and deflection is still new to Oregon. So, this is, I appreciate your comment, Commissioner Norton. I think we can definitely take that into consideration.
All right, Casey, I think we can keep moving. I'm really mindful of time and how much we have to cover.
Sounds great. So in terms of this phase one, for 25-27, these award decisions, I want to walk you through a general applicant pool overview, and then give you, again, that funding breakdown table that I kind of gave some foreshadowing about earlier. And then again, that applicant for phase one county funding table, in which then we will kind of have our discussion and make some award decisions. But first, that applicant pool overview. So we received 27 total applications, 27 different counties. Then that represents 26 total programs. So Hood River and Wasco once again applied as a regional consortium. And so those two counties are joining forces to continue to implement their deflection program. And so that's why there's more counties than programs. And there is one less program for this next iteration of BHD than there was last time. And that is because Baker County did not apply for funding this time around. So we continue to see a lot of variety among program designs and eligibility criteria, and as Chair Solomon mentioned, those definitions of success. But as far as the general trends go for these applications that we parse through, half of the programs are administratively housed in a law enforcement entity. A little more than 1/4 are housed in a behavioral health entity, and the rest are operated just by their respective county. And we are seeing that 22 programs accept that PCS charge alongside other low-level offenses, in addition to just standalone PCS, and that 24 programs are operating an officer intervention pathway, which is what most people think of when they hear the word deflection. And that's a law enforcement officer, either alone or as a member of a co-response team. They can make an arrest, or they're identifying a basis for a criminal charge. And instead of filing those charges officially and following that tradition criminal justice path, the officer refers the individual to assessment, treatment, or other services. And then, interestingly, the active outreach and naloxone plus pathways are the most popular planned additions for programs in the 25-27 biennium. So that active outreach pathway is when a law enforcement officer, first responder, or a non-law enforcement agency seeks out or encounters known individuals in the community that are in need of treatment and services. And the naloxone plus pathway is when a law enforcement officer, first responder, or crisis worker engages individuals as part of an overdose response with rapid engagement to treatment and services. So those are, again, the most popular plan additions for 2025-2027 biennium, but of course, funding permitting. Those are, they were flagged in the applications of like, hey, is this operational? And for those who said not yet, and we're planning to, once again, you might not see those operations reflected in this phase 1 budget. Overall, of course, the general constant seems to be variety and change among these programs. And at this time, those programs have the latitude to do so. As promised, wanted to orient you once again to the BHD funding breakdown. So in this red square is where we're at with this phase 1 funding. So 25% of that remaining funding that was available for deflection, apart from that tribal set aside, 25% of that remaining funding, which is just about 9.3 million, is what you're seeing here for the phase 1 allocations. And for the last time that this commission met, you all approved that phase 1 formula allocation county funding table. And here are those formula funding allocations for phase 1 for those that applied, it's the county applicants from that previously approved funding table. And you'll see here too that I combined Hood River and Wasco counties as they applied as consortium. And since they did so, you'll see that their $150,000 allocations are combined here for a total of $300,000. So this is, the 25-27 BHD phase 1 applicant formula allocations funding table. Here you'll see that we have 2 small flags, and really following outreach to seek further clarity, staff believe that these 2 counties, these applications may need a closer look. So my plan is to kind of walk you through, what we were seeing in these particular applications. And then kind of reorient you all back to the table at large and open it up for discussion. So for Grant County, that first magnifying glass at the bottom left there, the first thing that kind of came to our attention was that the proposed community response pathway does not fall underneath the nationally recognized definition of community response, in which a community-based behavioral health team engages with individuals to de-escalate crises and refer them to treatment and services. As part of that, law enforcement may be involved when there are public safety concerns. But when you're thinking like the community response pathway, that model, I think Cahoots down in Eugene is a great example. It's that, behavioral health team that's engaging with folks in active crisis and then referring them to treatment and then calling upon law enforcement if there are public safety concerns for co-response as part of that pathway. So the proposed narrative for Grant County's application for this particular pathway didn't meet that definition. And it was unclear if the proposed jail medication for opioid use disorder, or JMOOD, track, in which the applicant describes that folks on medication-assisted treatment in jail would be screened and assessed for deflection eligibility. It's unclear if that JMOOD track is creating a community-based pathway to treatment. It could be possible that the screening and assessment could be completed before filing charges, or for those, or for only those who are releasing from jail pre-arraignment, but staff were unable to determine based on the information provided and that community-based pathway to treatment was just not as clear as it was in other applications. And then for the second track under that community response proposal, it's unclear how deflection would work for those on conditional discharge for a drug enforcement misdemeanor, as they presumably have already been through a court process related to that charge. So it could be possible that in an effort to prevent future drug enforcement misdemeanor charges, folks on conditional discharge may be deflected, but staff were unable to determine, again, how that connection to treatment and services would be community-based. And then the last flag for this commission's attention was actually in the budget for Grant County, and that was a request to pay for medication in jail not covered by JMOOD. And while medication for deflection participants is indeed an eligible expense, it was unclear how providing medication in jail would be a community-based pathway to treatment. So Chair Solomon, I guess I'll pause here just to make sure there's opportunity for questions, but would you like me to continue on with Umatilla County and those flags, or would you like a full pause here?
Let's go ahead and continue on with Umatilla, and then we can answer any and all questions together.
Okay. Thank you for that guidance. All right, so transitioning over to the Umatilla County application. Again, this has to do with the community response pathway as part of that, I think it's C4 narrative. The community response pathway as proposed does not fall under that nationally recognized definition of community response. And then this application breaks down that pathway into 3 different tracks. So for that first track, it's again unclear if the proposed JMOOD track is creating a community-based pathway to treatment for all the same reasons in the Grant County application. And staff were just unable to determine, based on the information provided, even after clarity was sought from the applicant, that, the community-based pathway to treatment, is it there? It just did not seem as clear as it was in other applications. And then it was also unclear for the second track, at what point in the proposed municipal court partnership, so that's the second track there, it's unclear at what point in that track a participant might engage with deflection programming, and also whether or not deflection was court ordered rather than voluntary. They mentioned direct sentencing to deflection may be offered. So again, outreach was completed and clarity sought, but staff were unable to determine how this connection to treatment and services would be community-based, according to the information that the applicant provided. And then for the third track and final track for this community response pathway, it's unclear how deflection would work for those on conditional discharge for the drug enforcement misdemeanor, for all the same reasons that I described in the Grant County application response. But just, presumably these folks have already been through a court process related to that particular charge. And a staffer is unable to determine how that connection to treatment and services would be community-based if it's part of the conditional discharge. So we, raised all of these questions to the applicants, sought clarity from the counties, and just staff were still unable to determine based on the responses provided. And that's why we are bringing it to the attention of the commission today, and just wanted to ask if there was, any discussion or if you needed anything further before making a decision on these applications. So Chair Solomon, I'll turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you, Casey. All right, I'll open it up for questions for Casey about these applicants, and then we can talk about process.
Commissioner Norton.
Commissioner Norton.
Yeah, I just had a question on the 2 counties of concern. I know you've reached out. Is one of their options, and maybe this is a process, and Chair Solomon, you can tell me to mute myself until we get to that part. Is there a way to withhold, no, that sounds horrible, hold off on funding until the program can very clearly identify that community-based mental health treatment component? I don't want to say no to counties because this is so new, but I also don't want to set up a situation where we're not looking. I think that community-based option is super important for this program. So that's my question.
Yeah, I agree. I think the challenge we have in Casey, what you shared earlier, is we really have 3 options here, right? We can approve, we can return the application for further clarification, or we can deny, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess one of the questions that I have is, at this point, given that you've already tried to get further clarification, is there any value in trying to go back to the counties to look at other options?
Yeah, thank you for your question, Chair Solomon and Commissioner Norton. So I think there might be value in that. The clarification and additional details that the CJC staff sought from these 2 applicants was really to provide you all with the most complete picture of their application. It came with, the caveat that this still didn't seem like quite enough information, and it was possible that the commission would need further details. And I imagine that if this commission were to decide to return an application, the either or both or none, to staff to seek further clarification or review, et cetera, it may come with maybe some comments or direction from this commission as to why this commission thinks that those answers provided do not meet the ideas for that this commission would expect for those answers, or providing them particular guidance. I could also see maybe comments of from the commission as to the rest of the application seems appropriate, but there is hesitation on this particular pathway. I'll note too that for both of these counties, the community response pathway is not yet operational. So there seems to be an opportunity to, maybe provide that comment from the commission and see if they're amendable to changing that before an actual funding decision is made. And then Commissioner Norton, back on your original question of like, is it possible in terms of process, because this is a formula grant, holding off on the two decisions for these two applicants does not affect the funding amounts or the protest period for everyone else. So that process can continue for those folks while this additional information is sought, if that's something the commission chooses to do. And that possibility was also expressed to both of these applicants, that their contracting process, their potential award may be delayed because of additional information being needed from this commission.
All right, well, I'll open it up to commissioners. I'll just say that based on what you've shared, Casey, it sounds like these do not meet the definitions of community-based pathways. Conditional discharge, people being ordered by the bench to deflection, and people in the JMOOD programs seem like they do not fit within our current definition. So I would be very hesitant to approve them as is. Given that these are formula, we do want to see the counties be able to access these funds. I think it makes sense for us to send it back for further clarification and provide them with some guidance. But I want to open it up to the commission to see what others think.
This is Holly. I tend to agree with that approach. I think it makes sense to try to get just a bit more clarity, provide some guidance, and see what they come back with. And if they can't, then at that point, we have a clearer decision ahead of us.
Great. Other commissioners? Commissioner Beach.
Thank you, Chair. I also agree and follow with that thought. Clearly, this is really important work and fairly new work. And so in fairness, we'd like to give every opportunity possible for various jurisdictions to have this grant opportunity, but clearly some more information's needed.
Any other? Dia Proso.
One point of just a question for clarification: are all the pathways used in Grant and Umatilla County, are they creating this concern that there aren't, community pathways to them, or is there a specific concern with the projected use of, say, community response, but it's working? We anticipate that it's operating okay in these counties under officer intervention, for example.
Yeah, thank you for your question, Commissioner Prosa. So there were no other concerns raised by the other pathways that both of these counties are currently operating. And it was particular to the community response pathway that is planned to be implemented, but not yet operational. So like you said, I don't have it right in front of me, but if, for instance, Grant County was operating a officer intervention pathway, there were no flags that staff saw out of that particular pathway. It was only for the community response pathway.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Are there others that have strong feelings one way or the other about sending this back for further clarification?
Would you like a motion, Chair Solomon?
That would be great. Oh, and Commissioner McPherson, go ahead.
I apologize, Chair. I just wanted to say that I agreed with you and I feel strongly that it should be sent back for clarification. Thank you.
Great. Commissioner Beach.
Thank you, Chair. I did have one last clarification question per Commissioner Norton's question earlier. And forgive me, and I know all of these grants are a bit different, but is the option of provisional 1-year funding a possibility, such as with Justice Reinvestment for this particular grant?
I would think not, because we're just funding a partial year right now.
And that certainly makes sense, Chair, just clarifying for when we receive the information back from these two counties, as that appears to be the direction we're going.
Yeah.
So if there's no other comments, I would make a motion to return Grant and Umatilla counties applications for further clarification and review as outlined by CJC staff, on the points outlined by CJC staff.
Great. Is there a second?
I'll second. Commissioner Beach.
Great. We have a motion made by Commissioner Norton, seconded by Commissioner Beach. Jenny, would you please take roll?
Yes. Commissioner Beach.
Yes.
Commissioner Freeman.
Yes.
Commissioner Harris.
Yes.
Commissioner McPherson.
Yes.
Commissioner Norton.
Yes.
Commissioner Perosa.
Yes.
And Chair Solomon.
Yes.
Right, that motion passes unanimously.
All right.
I'm also happy to make a motion to approve the funding allocations for the rest of the counties listed. Do you want me to read them off?
No, I think we're going to have to break them out a little bit into.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
But we're getting close. But before we go there, I just want to make a couple of comments. One, I believe now is the time for counties to figure out what works, right? The legislature's given the counties quite a bit of latitude in designing these programs. But I think the heart of deflection is really developing a successful triage that includes warm handoffs that connect people to those community-based pathways to treatment, recovery services, housing, and the like. In the 27-29 biennium, as Casey had indicated, the process is going to be very different. It's going to be a competitive process. And I will flag that I have some concerns about the amount of funding in some of these county applications that are being dedicated to administration and law enforcement personnel. There are some counties where almost all of their funding is going to those two sources. And I want to make sure that counties are not supplanting, and that if we're paying for a full-time deputy or a DA, that it's being used for the intended purpose. And I recognize that law enforcement is an allowable use and a critical component in deflection. But I also recognize that as commissioners, it's our job to ensure that our limited public safety tax dollars are being used in the most efficacious manner possible. So very much looking forward to a standards issued product that will help guide us in the future, because right now the process is pretty wide open. And as staff have shared, everything that they have vetted in these applications are allowable uses. So with that, I will open it up for motion or any other comments that commissioners might have. Commissioner Perosa.
Thank you, Chair. I would also voice a bit of a concern in that there are a number of programs here that do not have officer intervention as a potential pathway.
Mhm.
I understand that CJC rules and the definition that was provided to us don't necessarily require that in order to have a deflection program. But when we don't have that, we're not actually deflecting charges or cases away from a criminal justice system. They're not deflection programs, so to speak, as defined. They're really just new pathways to treatment programs. And so I'm a little bit concerned. I understand that many of these communities need additional pathways to treatment programs, but at the heart of this program, and I think at the spirit of the legislature's intent to create a behavioral health deflection program, was the idea that we would be deflecting cases away from the ordinary criminal justice system, which was part of the idea upon recriminalization of these charges. So I offer that and add that for consideration.
Thank you. Other comments? All right, you want to put that slide back up there, Casey, with the motion language?
Right, hopefully you're seeing that now. And also just, this does not include the Grant and Umatilla counties that
Right.
you all have made the decision on. This is purely just for, the commission conflicts if they existed.
All right, is there someone that's willing to make a motion to approve all of the 25-27 BHD programs and award phase 1 formula allocations for all applicants except for Deschutes, Lane, Multnomah, Washington, and Yamhill counties? Commissioner Perosa,
I would so move.
is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion made by Commissioner Perosa, seconded by Commissioner Harris. Jenny, would you please take roll?
Yes. Commissioner Beach,
Yes.
Commissioner Freeman,
No.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner McPherson,
Yes.
Commissioner Norton,
Yes.
Commissioner Perosa, I'm sorry, Commissioner Perosa, can you give me your answer one more time?
Sorry, yes.
Thank you. Thanks. And Chair Solomon.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, and then I think we're going to take these other ones individually. Is there someone that would be willing to make a motion to approve the 25-27 phase 1 funding for Deschutes County?
I'll make that motion, Commissioner Beach.
Great. Is there a second?
I will second.
Great. Motion made by Commissioner Beach, seconded by Commissioner Perosa. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Beach,
Yes.
Commissioner Freeman,
No.
Commissioner Harris,
Abstain.
Commissioner McPherson,
Yes.
Commissioner Norton,
Yes.
Commissioner Perosa,
Yes.
and Chair Solomon.
Yes.
Very good. We do have 5 yeses on that one and 1 abstention.
Great. Would someone be willing to make a motion to approve phase 1 formula funding for Lane County? Commissioner Harris,
Also move.
is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion made by Commissioner Harris, seconded by Commissioner Norton. Roll call, please, Jenny.
Commissioner Beach,
Yes.
Commissioner Freeman,
No.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner McPherson,
Yes.
Commissioner Norton,
Yes.
Commissioner Perosa,
I abstain.
and Chair Solomon.
And I will also abstain and declare a conflict of interest as I am a contractor for Lane County.
So on that one, we have 4 yeses, 1 no, and 2 abstentions.
Great. Motion carries. Next up is Multnomah County. Someone be willing to make a motion to approve phase 1 funding for Multnomah County.
Also move.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion made by Commissioner Norton, second by Commissioner Harris. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Beach,
Yes.
Commissioner Freeman,
No,
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner McPherson,
I don't believe I have a conflict because I don't believe MPD receives any funds through this, but I will abstain out of abundance of caution.
Commissioner Norton,
Yes.
Commissioner Perosa,
Yes.
and Chair Solomon.
Yes.
5 yeses.
All right. Washington County. Would someone make a motion to approve their phase 1 funding, please?
Also move.
Is there a second?
I'll second. Commissioner Beach.
Great. Motion made by Commissioner Perosa, seconded by Commissioner Beach. Roll call, please, Jenny.
Commissioner Beach,
Yes.
Commissioner Freeman,
no,
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner McPherson,
Abstain for the same reasons stated previously.
Commissioner Norton,
Yes.
Commissioner Perosa,
Yes.
and Chair Solomon.
Yes.
Very good. Motion passes.
All right. Last but not least, Yamhill County. Someone willing to make a motion for their phase 1 funding.
Also move.
All right. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. Motion made by Commissioner Norton, seconded by Commissioner Harris. Roll call, please, Jenny.
Commissioner Beach,
I abstain.
Commissioner Freeman,
no,
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner McPherson,
Yes.
Commissioner Norton,
Yes.
Commissioner Perosa,
Yes.
and Chair Solomon.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right. Casey, anything else on behavioral health deflection before we wrap up?
No, Chair Solomon, I think the rest of it was just purely updates, so I can just speak to that very quickly. So for decisions made today, the protest period will be open for 10 days, contracting slated to begin early October, and award disbursements planned to go out by the end of October, depending on county processes with their contracting. But that is all for today for behavioral health deflection, and for the 2 counties, Grant and Umatilla, CGC staff will reach out for further clarification and come back to you all in October.
Great. Super. Thank you so much. And I just want to acknowledge that we did what took the grant review committee last year 8 hours, a couple of 4-hour meetings. So a lot of kudos to staff for all your hard work to kind of streamline this process for us today.
Thank you, commissioners. I appreciate it.
All right. Next up is the Restorative Justice Grant Award decisions. And Rima, you're going to walk us through the process.
Good afternoon. Please bear with me a second. Is my presentation loaded?
It is.
Okay, and everyone can see and hear me appropriately?
You sound a little muffled, but I can hear you. Can others hear you? Sounds like we got a no. Okay, so.
Okay. Please let me know if at any point I am too muffled or need to repeat something throughout the presentation.
Great.
So, good afternoon. For the record, my name is Rima Atung, and I am the grant coordinator for the Restorative Justice Grants. Today, I'm going to be talking to you about the grant award decisions for the 2025-2027 biennium for this program. So today's objective for you all is to review the Restorative Justice Grant Advisory Committee's approved funding awards for the competitive 2025-27 Restorative Justice Grant Program and determine whether to authorize those approved funding awards. You also have the option in accordance with OAR 213-40-70 to either authorize, return, and award to the Grant Advisory Committee for further review, or to decline to authorize an award in whole or in part based on specified ineligibility. So it's slightly different range of options than for the last grant. So first, I wanted to provide you with an overview of the restorative justice grants. In 2021, House Bill 2204 was created to support the Restorative Justice Grant Program. The purpose of the Restorative Justice Grant Program is to provide public and private entities with financial support for RJ programs. And a definition is provided in the statute for what an RJ program is. It is a community-based alternative to the criminal and juvenile legal system that aims to center on the needs of the harmed party and foster accountability within the responsible party without resorting to incarceration or criminal conviction. So for this upcoming biennium, there is a total of $4 million available to award. As noted, eligible applicants include public or private entities. And there were 2 program types specified that were eligible for funding: established programs and implementation programs. As noted, the program must serve the definition of restorative justice and also be a front-end program, which means that it intervenes at the beginning or the pre-adjudication or pre-conviction phase of the criminal justice system, as shown in this graph here. So anything in that green or beige zone is where a program is eligible to fund, and anything after that point is not eligible under this grant program. Along with the definition, the grant program specifies that a program must meet this list of 6 eligibility criteria on the left of the slide here. And that includes utilizing eligibility criteria, includes utilizing eligibility criteria to determine program participants, centering the experiences of those harmed, centering the program on the experiences of those harmed, encouraging those who have caused harm to take responsibility and repair that harm, supporting persons who have been harmed, impacted community members, and responsible parties in identifying solutions that promote healing, and that includes promoting dialogue and mutual agreement, and then coordinating with community-based organizations. And also, programs must have an ability to work collaboratively with system partners, including but not limited to local law enforcement entities, courts, district attorneys, and defense attorneys. Additionally, the rules specify that in evaluating and improving grant applications, the Grant Advisory Committee may give preference to programs that feature one or more of the following preferences. And those preferences include offering services that engage or serve rural or historically underserved regions in Oregon, offering services that engage or provide culturally appropriate services to socially disadvantaged individuals, partnering with a research entity to track and report on any program outcome measures, addressing cases that involve person felonies or misdemeanors, addressing case types that carry a presumptive prison sentence, prioritizing funding for direct services to the harmed party or responsible party, and then not disqualifying participants based on prior criminal history. So the Grant Advisory Committee can take those program features into consideration while doing the evaluations and determine to provide to prefer an application over another based on those criteria. So just to walk through the grant program solicitation process, a grant advisory committee meeting was held on March 10th, 2025. So the application process began in early of the first quarter of this year. CJC staff met with the grant advisory committee to gather feedback on the draft solicitation. And during that meeting, staff presented the solicitation questions and also presented the scoring rubric that would be used by staff to aid in the staff analysis of applications. The draft solicitation focused on those RJ program requirements, eligibility criteria, and preferences I just mentioned, as outlined in the program rules. So the initial scoring rubric was based on those criteria and had been actually developed previously in earlier biennium with assistance from the grant advisory committee. So we took that scoring rubric that had been previously developed and sort of adjusted it based on what was included in the solicitation this time. During this meeting, the grant advisory committee was given the opportunity to provide feedback, add additional criteria, and ask questions. And through discussion during the meeting and then written feedback provided after the meeting, the grant advisory committee provided several additional criteria that they wanted to be included in the solicitation. And that included what training staff and RJ facilitators received, the average number of staff hours for each participant or case, community and system referral partners, and how many referrals they received, the stage in the criminal justice system that clients were referred, client eligibility criteria, number of clients that were referred, served, and successfully completed the program in the last biennium, if applicable. The solicitation was open to implementation programs as well. So some of these may not be questions that they can answer. And for those folks, they provided estimates of what they thought they would be able to serve in the next biennium. And then any challenges and barriers experienced in the last biennium and how they were addressed. And then program performance and data outcomes achieved in the last biennium. And again, those are applicable only to the established programs. So all of that was incorporated into the solicitation. And the staff also revised the scoring rubric to include that new additional criteria. The changes to the solicitation and to including the scoring rubric were approved by the commission on March 20th. Just to give you a little background, the purpose of that rubric is really to aid staff in doing an objective analysis of the quality of the application based on the rules and requirements and that additional criteria that was identified. This slide includes an example, and I apologize for the small writing. This is one section of what the scoring rubric looks like. So you can see it's looking at program description and staffing. It breaks out, the different aspects that were asked in the solicitation, like identify programs, goals, and objectives, and then gives a scale to score the response on based on how good and complete that response is, how specific and thorough the response is. And that scale goes from 0, no response, to 5, exceptional response. So to help applicants understand specifically what information we would be looking for in their responses, we did publish this rubric with the solicitation, and we also provided an explanation of how staff would use it in the preliminary application instructions webinar that was held on April 10th. We also shared a recording of the webinar and the presentation with attendees, and the recording was posted on CJC's YouTube page. So, sorry. To help organize the applications that we received, the first set of applications were in response to the preliminary application, which was just the narrative portion describing the different program aspects. So to help us organize what we received and to facilitate a more effective and focused grant advisory committee review process, it's standard for CJC staff to conduct an internal analysis of applications prior to presenting it at any grant advisory committee review meeting. So for the preliminary application, 2 CJC staff reviewed each application using the scoring rubric as a tool, just to help identify how thoroughly and completely the applicant answered each question, how well the eligibility requirements and preferences were met, and then also to highlight any areas where the application was unclear or where more information was needed. For example, in response to a question about the timeline, if an applicant provided a detailed timeline of when specific program activities were anticipated to occur by month or quarter, staff would score that higher than an applicant who gave a more general description of overarching program activities not tied to any specific benchmark or increment of time. The entire team met after that initial scoring and discussed each application with a particular emphasis on areas where the scores might have differed between the reviewers, just to make sure we had a clear understanding of what was included in each application. We also, as part of the staff analysis, compared the data that existing grantees provided on how many referrals were received by applicants, how many clients were served, that programmatic information with data they submitted. So we compared data submitted to CJC in quarterly reports with what was submitted in response to the application. This comparison highlighted multiple issues, such as grantees not having data protocols in place. This is a relatively new program, so the timeline of when different grantees were up and running and able to report data differed across different programs. So we don't necessarily have a standard, time frame to compare, for one thing. Some applicants were missing information in either their CJC reporting or in the application itself. Oh, and in some cases, the counts were different between those 2 sources. So we did highlight that when we did our staff analysis and presented it to the Grant Advisory Committee. So we presented the staff analysis on June 16th. That included, the scoring, our recommended questions and issues that we highlighted in that preliminary application, as well as those data issues. The Grant Advisory Committee did at this point express some concerns with the scoring, but they did approve the majority of staff suggested feedback and questions, and then provided some additional feedback and questions on top of that to follow up with all of the applicants. So the final application period closed July 22nd, and CJC received a total of 13 final applications. As shown in the table here, the total amount of funding requested by all applicants is $8,536,492, which is about $4.5 million above what we have available to award. I do also want to note here that this table shows the full name of each applicant that we received a final application for, such as Center for Dialogue and Resolution. I abbreviate that to CDR moving forward. Some of the abbreviations are very similar, so if you have any confusion between those abbreviations, please let me know. So we received the final application, which was a response to all of that feedback and questions from the preliminary application, as well as the budget request and the budget narrative that's built into that budget form. So similar to the preliminary application, CJC staff conducted the review of the final applications in much the same way. Two staff scored each application using the same rubric. If the applicant responded to a question from the grant advisory committee, then staff revised that score based on the new information and how thoroughly and completely that specific topic was addressed overall between the preliminary and final applications. The intent of doing it that way was really to provide a final score that took into consideration, how the responsive was overall, and then also how well they addressed all those concerns. And hopefully that score reflected all of that. The staff also reviewed and scored the budget request for how well the line items in the budget request aligned with the proposed program and how reasonable and allowable the costs were. So we're going to talk through the process of how the decisions were made at this grant advisory committee meeting. At this point, so all of the staff analysis was presented. And then staff also proposed a few steps to facilitate the final application review and the award decisions that needed to be made. These steps included a series of 3 proposed budget reductions and then 4 different funding scenarios the Grant Advisory Committee could use to frame any further budget reductions needed. Those funding scenarios were based off of performance on the application and performance on spending in prior contracts, just because of the issues and concerns we ran into about the reliability of data, as well as the newness of the program and not having standards of what different types of restorative justice programs look like for this grant program. The staff determined that it wouldn't be appropriate to use that other data that was submitted, such as number of client referrals and client completion rates. Unlike the behavioral health program that has those specifically defined pathways, such as the community response pathway, there has not been anything established like that for the restorative justice program. So it would be a little bit more difficult to do those types of comparisons, but that is something that we are absolutely actively working on doing moving forward. So again, to aid the Grant Advisory Committee, we had proposed a few budget reductions. 2 of those 3 sort of baseline reductions were approved and applied to the applicant's budgets, and that included removal of unallowable and out of scope costs, and then a 20% budget reduction across the board on line items that applicants identified themselves as part of a budget prioritization process. The Grant Advisory Committee also chose to move forward with the first scenario, albeit slightly altered, and that was to fund only applicants that performed well on the solicitation. Due to the disagreement on how the staff scoring played out, and that was for a number of reasons that were brought up. For example, it was noted that the application scoring relies on the applicant's self-reports and may not present a true picture of how well the program actually aligns with the RJ goals. So there was a number of concerns like that were brought up. So because of that, the Grant Advisory Committee determined to move forward with that first scenario, but to re-rank the applicants based on a combination of staff scores and discussion that was held during the meeting. So after making the baseline reductions, it was also determined that Union County was ineligible to fund. Then the Grant Advisory Committee chose to re-rank each applicant individually based on those factors that they discussed and determined during the meeting. And they did take into consideration the staff scores, but used those more to generate discussion in combination with other considerations that were brought up during conversation. So the next step in the decision-making process was the Grant Advisory Committee determined that Clackamas County Resolution Services did not sufficiently demonstrate key eligibility criteria and preferences and voted not to fund them. And I apologize, this is very process-oriented, so please bear with me. So the Grant Advisory Committee, as I mentioned, reordered the applicants from high ranking to low ranking. And these were the ranking groups that were determined through that conversation. So there's Group A, high ranking, Group B, mid ranking, Group C, low ranking. And those 2 applicants that I mentioned were determined to be ineligible. For the low ranking applicants, just due to the amount of funds available, it was voted that those not be funded. And then to facilitate the remaining budget reductions required, because there was still a couple $1 million over the $4 million available, staff made a recommendation on how to apply scale percentages to each of the remaining budget requests on top of the across the board reductions that had already been approved. So the Grant Advisory Committee chose to fund the Group A high-ranking folks at 90% of the remaining ask, and then apply those scaled budget reductions to the Group B mid-ranking folks. So this table kind of outlines the different applicants that fell into each group and what percentage was applied to their remaining budget. So here is the table showing the Grant Advisory Committee approved awards once the budget reductions are all applied. So we have that $4 million available. The requested was about 8.5. And then we have each of the applicants ordered in those groups, how much they requested, and then the approved amounts here. So I think this is a good point to pause and let you folks have a discussion and ask any questions that you might have about the process or anything else.
Great. Thank you, Rima. Questions for staff? Commissioner Freeman.
I'll go first again. Thank you. So I am not as knowledgeable as I should be about this specific program, but one thing I want to highlight and make sure we're all tracking the same is that the fact that we have people questioning a process really calls into question the possibility of procedural problems and bottom line it could jeopardize credibility of the work that we do. So I was once the co-chair of the Ways and Means Subcommittee of Health and Human Services in the legislature, and I can't remember one time where I had somebody that didn't receive the funding they want come back and be as clear as some of these people have been about process and jeopardize future funding. So the fact that these people that we heard from today stepped up and said, hey, we got a problem here, I think we should take note of. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Other comments? Do you have Commissioner Norton? Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I would echo Commissioner Freeman's concerns, even on the other side, when you have an advisory committee who we've read their testimony and heard some of it today that was unclear. I don't see how we can move forward until we reach clarity on all sides. But that's just my personal opinion.
Other comments? Commissioner Beach.
Thank you, Chair. I also agree based on the public comment received both verbally and in writing, not only from the grant submittees, but also from the grant review committee members. It appears that process was just confusing enough that it certainly garners being mindful about taking the opportunity to look and revise again. I know time, of course, is of the essence, and folks are wanting to receive these grant funds, but I think it behooves us to look a little closer at the process, make sure everyone is well aware and can understand the process appropriately, and dive then into the scoring and consideration of awards at that time.
Thank you. Commissioner McPherson.
Thank you, Chair. Based on public comment, both written and oral, I'm very concerned about the process and the confusion that occurred throughout this process, and I believe this should be sent back to the Grant Review Committee for further consideration. Thank you.
So I'm hearing a number of commissioners desire to send this back to the Grant Advisory Committee. I think if we do that, we need to give pretty clear instructions. I don't think it's fair to staff or to the committee to just take it back and say, rework this. One of the things that I have questions about, Rima, is the number of cases referred. And I hear that that's been a challenge to get good numbers that you can validate. But in my thinking, at the end of the day, this program is going to be measured by the legislature based on the number of cases that are actually successfully referred. And if we can't accurately say how many people we're serving, I don't know how much longer the legislature is going to be willing to fund this program. So I think that's something that needs to get worked out. And I think that would be one thing that I would be in favor of sending this back to the committee to review. But I'm curious if there are other pieces that commissioners would like the GAC to actively address. Commissioner Perosa.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I want to share, I would echo your concern with regard to clients referred. Just in looking at the numbers in the report, 35% of the restorative justice money is going to one county, and there, at least according to the numbers provided, 23 clients total that were from those two organizations in that county that were ultimately referred to their programs. That doesn't seem like bang for the buck, especially at a time when, you know, money is so precious to these various programs around the state. So I agree with the chair in that I think while they may be crude numbers, I think it is beneficial for us to have some indication as to how many people these organizations are actually serving. Thank you.
Great. Any other input? Rima, do you have any questions from the, go ahead, Commissioner Norton.
Yeah, I think the other thing is just given the confusion from the GAC, and I know sitting on JRI, right, JRP, I always mix up the letters. You know, sometimes I have forgotten what we set out as the scoring rubric from the time we do the preliminary to the final. I think it probably would behoove us to, I don't know how to do this without, like, I'm not trying to overrule the GAC, but really, like, what were the priorities that we had set out, and make sure that there's no questions about what the priorities that we had set out with the GAC input. I don't know if that's even possible at this point. I know there's at least one member of the GAC, and I'm not sure who else is on here from the GAC, but, you know, I think they gave input. We said, yep, that sounds great. Go with it. Right. And then when they actually got into the meeting, it was like, whoa, 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 whoa. And I can understand sometimes they don't work. We ran into that at JRP, and I will talk about that too. But I think part of it is that clarity from us, like, hey, these are the things, right? So I don't know if there's anything we can do as a commission around that, or if that needs to be clarified for the GAC. I'm just thinking out loud, so I'm going to mute myself.
And I might turn this question around now, Rima, to ask what would be helpful for staff based on what you've heard so far, in terms of clear direction.
Yeah, so it would be helpful to get some clear direction. Several things were mentioned, like look closer at the process. So I'm not sure what that means on top of, documenting the process that we went through already. I do want to note that for things like the number of cases referred and cases served, part of the complication comes into play in the wide difference in types of programs we have. For example, we have a few programs that are organized through county through the county, so they're coming from the law enforcement side. Their referrals are coming through law enforcement, and then folks are getting connected to the community-based organizations for additional support. That type of program, from what we've seen, has had a much higher volume of clients with less service time per client, versus on the other side of things, the programs that are really relying on community referrals have a much lower number of clients. But, a few programs in particular are targeting higher level crimes, including violent crimes, and they require a huge number of staff support hours. So just looking at number of clients alone doesn't really give you that picture. And I think that's part of it. We don't have those defined models, at least not when we set out the solicitation. And we do try and make sure we share all the information we have about how we're going to make the decisions when we post the solicitation, so applicants know that. We didn't have those, defined models. It would be fantastic, and I'm happy to do the work to identify those, to figure out the different types of programs and what level is appropriate, and look at those different measures like number of clients, maybe cost per client, or cost per, staff hour for each client, whatever measure seems the most appropriate. But it's a little more complicated than just number of clients, I think. That doesn't really paint the whole picture. So I did want to note that. And I do want to also note, again, that whatever numbers we end up using in this process will be based on what they self-reported in their application at this point, since we have the two different applicant types, both existing and implementation. So that's the only, we can't use the previous program data that's fraught with issues. That's the only point of comparison that we have, if that makes sense. So
can you say that again?
We would need to use what was reported in the application itself,
which
rather
was
than relying on the former CJC data, since there are different timelines and that sort of thing that was already described. So I'm not sure if that answered your question. I just wanted to respond to some of that. I do think more clarity on what specifically you would want us to look at and consider on top of what we already had would be very helpful for staff and the Grant Advisory Committee.
Well, I think as it relates to the numbers, if there's a way that you can weight them based on number of hours, severity of crime, I think that makes sense. Clearly, if someone is charged with a Measure 11 offense that's going into an RJ process, that's very different than a misdemeanor. So I would encourage you to I guess a direction might be to come up with a methodology that appropriately weights cases based on a variety of factors, including crime, number of hours, etc.
Thank you.
Commissioner Norton.
And I would also request, and I know it would delay things, but if there's going to be changes to the priority given for the application criteria or how they're scored, if there's a substantial change in that, I would also encourage staff to reach back out with those new changes so they have the opportunity to correct whatever, like if we say, oh, we're doing this weighted average and here's the factors, I would encourage the applicants be given the opportunity to correct their not correct, but to revise their application to be more responsive to what the GAC is then considering moving forward. I know that delays the process, but these are important decisions. If nobody feels comfortable with them, then I would say it's worth delaying funding decisions a little bit longer.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. So in addition to coming up with a weight that looks at the staff hours, severity of cases, so the service-oriented aspects, are there any other priorities or things that need to be looked at, or would you want that re-ranking or re-looking at applicants to be based on that specifically?
A couple of thoughts. One is unclear how you landed on the 90% funding for the highest ranked programs, and then the other batch got between 50 and 80%. I'm not sure if I was doing it that I would have done it that way, but it's easy for me to Monday morning quarterback, and I'm not critiquing, but I'm more curious about that process and seeing if there's a way to maybe make it a little more equitable. And I heard in your presentation that you said at one point one of the priorities was rural counties, and reflecting on Commissioner Perosa's comments, I guess I'm unclear about how those priorities were used.
Sure. So in the scoring, in the staff analysis, we identified how many priorities folks met based on their response, and that was included in the presentation to the Grant Advisory Committee. I think there was, I am not sure that they were considered in a systematic way during that conversation, but I can't speak to how the Grant Advisory Committee made those determinations.
Okay. Any other direction from commissioners? Okay. Hearing, Commissioner Beach, if you wait long enough.
Forgive me, Chair.
No,
So I
good.
just want to be sure when we talk about, looking at the referral numbers, that doesn't make automatically those implementation grant applications ineligible. So that's certainly a concern that I have as well. If they're implementing a program, we can assume they probably don't have any referrals yet. So just a comment there.
Thank you for that comment.
Commissioner McPherson.
Thank you, Chair. Reading through the documents and the written comments that people have that were on the GAC, to the extent it's feasible, I think it would be appropriate to to have the GAC give input as well. Given that they have the expertise around restorative justice, that they're working on restorative justice, I guess I would ask the CGC staff members to take into account those letters, that feedback, and try to implement that in the process going forward. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. And the Grant Advisory Committee is tasked with approving awards. So I think we would have to go back to them regardless. And sorry, just another point of clarification. So in looking at this, this new direction for the methodology, are we wanting to discard the staff scoring and the grant advisory rankings that have already occurred and start fresh, or take them into consideration with this new methodology?
Commissioners?
I'm having a hard time hearing, so
I think go ahead and try and restate it again, Rima.
Sure. Can you hear me a little bit better?
Go ahead.
Okay. So in terms of the methodology that you recommended implementing, are you recommending that we look at that in combination with the staff scoring and the grant advisory committee rankings that have already occurred? Or are you asking that we, set that aside and do a new analysis?
Commissioner Freeman, I see you have your hand up.
I was just going to suggest, to the extent you can make it easy to understand and clear and the same for everybody that applies. I know those are easy things to say out loud, but it may be more difficult as you try to apply all this. Again, I'm as much worried about the credibility of the work that we're doing. And I just think it's important that it's easy to understand and clear. It is a little hard to hear you, but what I am hearing sounds like it could be pretty confusing as an applicant and as a reviewer on the committee, the grant review committee. So I think simplifying it might not hurt anything.
Other comments in response to Rima's question? Go ahead, Carl.
Thank you, Chair. I think based on the comments written in oral, it's better to disregard the prior scoring and start the process over from fresh. I'm gonna lean that way. That would be my lean.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. I think I want to do a temperature check with everybody on this. So go ahead, Commissioner Harris.
Yes, I agree. I think it's just going to be used as a reason to not feel like the next process went the way it could have gone if you're using information that they didn't feel was appropriate the first time. So I think starting fresh, starting from scratch with clear guidance would be my preference.
Okay. Other commissioners?
I would agree, Chair. I think that is the appropriate route at this point.
And I would just echo, I would reiterate that whatever changes are made, that programs are given the opportunity, even if it's a short window of time, to be responsive to those.
All right. I feel like we have consensus around sending these back for a full re-review. I do want to acknowledge all the time and energy that staff have put into this, and as well as the members of the GAC. And I know this has been a challenging process, but I'm hopeful that with this second iteration, which will extend our award period time. So, I think that's the one drawback is we've got programs that have been operating now that may be, nearing the end of their funding for the previous cycle. But hopefully we can give you the amount of time necessary to do the due diligence, bring this back to commission or to the commission, hopefully in October, November, and then we can make the final awards.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else that you want to report on, Rima?
I guess I just would like to say that overall the applications were incredibly detailed and thorough and very well done. And I think part of the difficulty is there were so many good applications compared to the amount of funding available.
Yeah, and I think this is one of the challenges that we have with our grant programs is we're a victim of our own success. We start out and we've got enough money, and then very soon more counties or more CBOs begin applying, and all of a sudden we have to make really difficult decisions. And so, I just appreciate all the hard work that everybody's putting into getting this process done in the most efficacious manner possible. All right, thank you. We are now at 3 o'clock, which remarkably, we are pretty much on time to move into our justice reinvestment conversation. And I believe Lindsay is going to walk us through JRP funding award decisions.
I am. Thank you, Chair Solomon. Can you see the slides?
Yes.
Great. So good afternoon, Chair and Commissioners. For the record, I'm Lindsay Collins, and I'm the Justice Reinvestment Program Manager here at the CJC. Today, I'm asking the Commission to review and make funding and approval decisions for the 25-27 JRP grant. A little look at today's slides and what we're going to be doing. So lots of components to JRP, and we'll try to get through them as fast as we can with any questions or concerns, things that we need to discuss. So as a reminder, JRP's purpose is to provide funding for counties to plan, implement, and expand initiatives that establish a process to assess individuals and provide a continuum of community-based sanctioned services and programs. The goals: reduce recidivism, reduce prison usage, while protecting public safety and holding individuals accountable. And a little breakdown of the total amount of JRP grant funding for 25-27 and the different components and the responsible parties for reviewing. So we have now completed all of those reviews with the different entities there and are now before the Commission. So listed here are the Commission's decision points for each element of the 25-27 JRP grant. We will go through each element as a separate section of the review and decision process. I'll just take a moment to let you all kind of absorb that. They're all pretty similar. The big difference is that top portion for formula and competitive grant, where the two decision points are to either accept the GRC funding recommendations or to return specific applications to GRC for reconsideration. Okay. So a quick overview of the preliminary and final application review process, bringing us to where we are today. You all have seen this slide before. This is the preliminary application. So we'll go over just a brief kind of wave top review of what the preliminary application included. If you have any questions, I'm happy to expound on the review process, but I know we've covered it in previous discussions. So just as a reminder, House Bill 3064 mandates that we create a triage process, which you may recognize as the green, yellow, and orange categories. So in the preliminary application phase, this is kind of where we place the counties into each category depending on their data. And then from in that preliminary application review process, depending on the category, we do this level of review. So what you're seeing in each category is the amount of review that staff do and then kind of review with the GRC. So we
And
won't go, oh, sorry. go
Lindsay,
ahead.
correct me if I'm wrong, but we're still using baseline data from 2012-15, right?
Correct. So some of those points of topic or points of discussion are coming up of what do we do in this next biennium, the
Right.
things that we need to change, and that's one of those topics that has been brought up.
Great.
All right, so kind of what the GRC's main role was in preliminary application was to provide feedback to applicants based on this criteria. So it is a formula grant. So based on this criteria, provide feedback to applicants so that they could strengthen their application, their final application, and make that the best application that they could submit. All right, and that brings us into the final application. I guess before I move into the final application, if I could pause for any questions around what the preliminary application included.
Questions?
All right, so the final application is where we are today. It's highlighted in that dashed box on the slide, and depicts there the decision points for the commission today. So the GRC's review in the final application phase ultimately determined that every county's application meets the eligibility requirements, and that's what the funding recommendations for the formula grant are based on.
So I have a question about this, Lindsay, particularly the one that is a yes, no around considering accepting STTL candidates as appropriate.
Mhm.
I have heard a number of community corrections directors and others express concerns about being able to serve STTL clients due to the flat grant and aid funding. And I'm just curious how that might impact a county's application.
So because it's an eligibility requirement that they're able to, maybe that they're not necessarily serving them. It's definitely a component. Kelly, I see your hand. I'll just finish my thought and then let you speak. So it doesn't impact that necessarily. We didn't have any applicants at least this biennium that marked that they could not serve STTL. So understand that maybe it's a future concern, and maybe Kelly, you can speak to that.
Yeah, thanks, Chair Solomon and commissioners kind of jumping in on the fly here, but it was just last week in the Corrections Forecast Advisory meeting, and this very topic came up. So in a different context in that way. And so that group does track the folks going into the STTL program fairly closely. And to date, haven't seen a significant decline, but Chair Solomon, to your point, some concern from community corrections departments with their funding scenario of the ability to continue to accept folks into that program, and potentially also a challenge of housing as well. So starting to see a slight tick up in folks that are not eligible to participate due to lack of housing, and concerns that may also increase. And so where that committee ended up was we need to keep a close eye on this, but it has not yet impacted program participation as of now.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Great. Okay, so moving into the formula grant funding decision that we're asking from the commission today. So the plan is to go through the formula grant review based on the triage tool grouping. So that color category there that you saw previously. All GRC recommendations to the commission are to fully fund, with some caveats that I will note when applicable. Since all recommendations are for full funding, we've prepared prepared motion language to approve all applications at the end of the formula grant section. However, Chair, if you'd like to take a vote after each triage group, we can do that too. So I'll leave that up to you all.
I think we can probably do them all together.
All right, so moving into this first group, there are two green groups. This first green group is the below baseline decreasing usage. And you'll see a table. You'll see this for each slide. Basically, the county, the program funding amount, which is formula and has already been approved by the commission, and then the GRC's recommendation. For Washington County, so I'll talk to that caveat from the GRC. So this caveat doesn't affect the GRC's recommendation for full funding, but just more as elevating to the commission to discuss and potentially provide maybe some guidance to staff. That so GRC requests that technical assistance would be helpful to embed equity within Washington County's program. So I'll leave that there for discussion for you, Chair, and any questions.
Yeah, I think we could flag that for future conversation to potentially use any unallocated funds that we have later on for programs that have that type of a TA need.
Okay. Should I move on to the next?
Yeah, please,
group? Okay.
please.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next group, small counties, green group as well. This is a big group, so I'll definitely give you a little bit of time to take in this table. We did have two more kind of caveats from the GRC, one for Curry County. And the GRC requested that technical assistance to help the county ensure equity is embedded in their program. So I'll take your previous guidance there, Chair. Mm-hmm. And then for Union County, the GRC requests more information about how the restitution specialist works within the restitution program and how the program incorporates different streams of funding to operate it.
So were you not able to reach out to Union County to get those questions answered?
We didn't have them answered in between the review and now. It's something that we flagged as working with the county prior to or during the contracting period.
Okay. All right.
All right, so moving into the yellow category, below baseline increasing use. No caveats to discuss here, just the funding table.
So I just want to note that having lived in Lane County for many years, when House Bill 3194 first passed, we were double the statewide average in prison utilization for many property crimes, but our numbers came way down early. So if you looked at us in 2018, 2020, I think what you would see we would be green, but a lot of other factors have changed since then. So I feel like using the 2012-15 baseline data doesn't necessarily give us a good indicator of what's going on now in relation to, the last 5 or 6 years of public safety activity.
Thanks for that comment, Chair. Sorry, did somebody else speaking? I thought I heard somebody else comment. I appreciate the comment, Chair. So we definitely hear that, and I think within like the GRC and staff review, part of the response to that without having changed the entire triage process, looking more towards changing that with the upcoming 3069 changes, really looking at the county's response. So we ask, what are the local factors? What's happening for you all in your counties, and taking those responses into consideration in this review process. So yes, recognizing that some of these counties are in maybe a yellow or orange category, but what are the counties experiencing locally, and what are they communicating to us? So definitely hear you, Chair, and appreciate the comment.
Thank you.
So moving into the, again, that orange category above baseline and increasing use, and that that funding table recommendation, again, back to Chair, your kind of point, lots of discussion, and also counties have great responses and are explaining their local situations. All right, and so that brings us to the end of the formula grant funding recommendations. So I'll pause here for any questions or discussions, Chair, and then leave it up to you for this optional motion language.
Great, thank you. Right, any questions at this point for Lindsay? Yes, Commissioner Norton.
Yes, not so much a question, and maybe Lindsay, you'll be addressing this later, but so you can throw the mute button at me if you need to. But I think I became increasingly concerned about the lack of that staff are having a difficult time getting the statistics, the data from the counties to make good decisions because they're simply not reporting. And I'm sure you can elaborate on that. But I do hope that we consider that as part of future grant applications, that in order to be eligible, they must be doing any data reporting that's required for the programs, because I think it became, more so problematic this year than maybe in previous years, or maybe I just forgot about previous years, but it just became increasingly concerning that data wasn't being reported.
Thanks, Commissioner Norton. If I can maybe add some clarification to that from the conversation at the GRC. A lot of that came up around the competitive grant, and we can absolutely get into that around that portion more in depth as needed. And there are some components to JRP where more county level data entry would be supportive in making data informed decisions. Right now, formula grant doesn't really require some of those things, but I think again with 3069 and some of those accountability components that it's going to require, there's a lot of desire to implement some of that. So yeah, any guidance for future things, that could be a separate meeting too. It's a recommendation from the GRC coming on the heels of the competitive grant, which we'll get into next, is to have that meeting, provide recommendations to the commission, and then start to have some of those directions from the commission.
Okay, sorry, Lindsay. At this point, no other questions or comments for Lindsay? I would entertain a motion to accept the GRC funding recommendations for the formula grant programs, with the exceptions of Deschutes, Douglas, Lane, Multnomah, Washington, and Yamhill counties. Commissioner Freeman.
Would make that motion as read by the chair.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Right. Motion made by Commissioner Freeman, seconded by Commissioner Perosa. Roll call, please, Jenny.
Commissioner Beach,
Yes.
Commissioner Freeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner McPherson,
Yes.
Commissioner Norton,
Yes.
Commissioner Perosa,
Yes.
and Chair Solomon.
Yes.
Passes unanimously.
Great.
And Chair, did we want to do the separate call outs for
Oh,
those.
geez, I am so sorry. I was waiting for you to go on to the next slide. Yes, please. My apologies. Would someone be willing to make a motion to accept the GRC funding recommendation for the formula grant for Deschutes County?
This is Freeman, I'll make that motion.
All right, Commissioner Proso.
I make that motion, Your Honor, or sorry, Chair.
Okay, so
Force
it
of
looks like,
habit.
yeah, it sounds like Commissioner Freeman made the motion. Would you be willing to make a second?
Absolutely.
Great. Jenny, would you please call roll? We have a motion made by Commissioner Freeman, seconded by Commissioner Perosa for Deschutes County.
Yes, Commissioner Beach,
Yes.
Commissioner Freeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
I'll abstain.
Commissioner McPherson,
Yes.
Commissioner Norton,
Yes.
Commissioner Perosa,
Yes.
and Chair Solomon.
Yes.
That passes.
Great. Would someone be willing to make a motion to accept the GRC funding recommendation for Douglas County? Commissioner Harris,
Also move.
is there a second?
I'll second. Commissioner Beach?
All right, motion made by Commissioner Harris, seconded by Commissioner Beach. Roll call, please, Jenny.
Commissioner Beach,
Yes.
Commissioner Freeman,
Abstain.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner McPherson,
Yes.
Commissioner Norton,
Yes.
Commissioner Perosa,
Yes.
and Chair Solomon.
Yes.
And that passes.
All right. Would someone be willing to make a motion to accept GRC funding recommendation for Lane County's formula grant?
So moved.
I'll
Commissioner
second.
Beach?
I'll second
right.
that, Freeman.
Great. Motion made by Commissioner Beach, seconded by Commissioner Freeman. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Beach,
Yes.
Commissioner Freeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner McPherson,
Yes.
Commissioner Norton,
Yes.
Commissioner Perosa,
Abstain.
and Chair Solomon.
Abstain.
We have 5 yeses. So that
Great.
passes.
Wonderful. Next up is Multnomah County. Would someone be willing to make a motion to accept GRC funding recommendation for the formula grant program for Multnomah County?
I so move.
Is there a second?
I'll second. Commissioner Beach?
Right. Motion made by Commissioner Perosa, seconded by Commissioner Beach. Roll call, please, Jenny.
Commissioner Beach,
Yes.
Commissioner Freeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Commissioner Harris?
Oh, yes. Sorry, couldn't hear me.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Commissioner McPherson,
Abstain.
Commissioner Norton,
Yes.
Commissioner Perosa,
Yes.
and Chair Solomon.
Yes.
And that
All right.
passes.
We're almost done. Washington County's next. Is someone willing to make a motion to accept the GRC funding recommendation for the formula grant for Washington County?
I so move. This is Commissioner Harris.
Right, is there a second?
I'll
I'll
second.
second.
Commissioner Beach? Oop.
All right, I think that was a tie, but I'll give it to Commissioner Beach. We have a motion made by Commissioner Harris, seconded by Commissioner Beach. Roll call, please, Jenny.
Commissioner Beach,
Yes.
Commissioner Freeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner McPherson,
Abstain.
Commissioner Norton,
Yes.
Commissioner Perosa,
Yes.
and Chair Solomon.
Yes.
And
All
that
right.
passes.
Last ones, Yamhill County. Would someone make a motion to accept the GRC funding recommendation for the formula grant program for Yamhill County?
This is Freeman. I make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, motion made by Commissioner Freeman, seconded by Commissioner Perosa. Roll call, please, Jenny.
Commissioner Beach,
I abstain.
Commissioner Freeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner McPherson,
Yes.
Commissioner Norton,
Yes.
Commissioner Perosa,
Yes.
and Chair Solomon.
Yes.
That passes.
All right, now we can move on to the next slide.
I think we are past our normal meeting time.
Obviously, in my mind, we are.
All right, so moving into the competitive grant, and I think maybe we'll talk a little bit about some of Commissioner Norton's comments in the next few slides, but moving into the grant solicitation language, just kind of as a reminder of what that entailed. So the competitive grant is a companion to the formula grant that specifically supports downward departure prison diversion programs. The solicitation language states the requirement for the competitive grant as downward departure prison diversion programs, key personnel that increases capacity to engage in these programs, and that reduction strategies would be set by the commission. And we'll go over those in the next slide. So this may look familiar to you all, but this is the commission approved competitive grant reduction strategy that was approved by the commission kind of over a series of a couple of months. Just a quick recap, we started this process kind of to Commissioner Norton's point because we knew that we didn't have a lot of complete data around downward departures. And, to Commissioner Norton's point, some of that or a lot of that is because we need counties to fill that in at their level for us to have accurate data. So knowing that we needed to get this competitive grant or the solicitation out and this process going, we engaged early with previous applicants, competitive grant applicants, and all JRP applicants, and kind of asked for their input on how they would like to see reductions done. And that kind of started the process. Then we also then engaged with the GRC and asked for their input on what the competitive grant reduction process should look like. So from that, we took all that input and presented it to the commission to have a reduction strategy approved. And from that meeting, and then also a further meeting where the commission determined how they would like new applicants, a reduction strategy applied to new applicants was determined. This entire or this comprehensive reduction strategy was then kind of set and established. So what you're seeing there is what the GRC used to make funding recommendations to the commission today. So that's the strategy that we used and didn't deviate from that. So I recognize that maybe Commissioner Norton, if you wanted to kind of talk about that again, but some of those data points that was kind of the reason why we started down the road of a reduction strategy. We recognize that data was missing. It's something that we need to work on for future biennia. So kind of to that point, the GRC recommended what you're seeing in that allotted column highlighted in green. That's the funding amount that the GRC is recommending, with the caveat that the GRC meets to discuss how future reduction strategies for the competitive grant and other grants are determined, and wanting to provide input to the commission to make decisions in the future. So what I'll say there is you'll see kind of on the right-hand column % fulfilled. So that is just the kind of the percentage of requested versus allotted. You'll see two outliers there. Clackamas County, 76%. They had an unallowable expense, which the GRC reviewed and determined to be unallowable. And then Lane County, who when using the reduction strategy wound up asking for less money in their scenario build than they were allowed to ask for. but still had the same reduction haircut applied. So the same strategy, you kept the strategy the same for every applicant. So pending any questions, Chair, here's recommended optional motion language for you all.
Great. Question, Commissioner Beach.
Thank you, Chair. Actually, more of a comment. Just wanted to make a comment with regard to the concern with data collection. And certainly I agree that it's very important to have accountability measures in place and data outcomes to measure. But I don't think anyone would argue with me if they were aware that most of these data outcomes required of the competitive grants specifically, such as employment referrals, treatment referrals, housing referrals, and such. Those typically need to be hand tallied, which can be very laborious, simply because our AS400 system is quite antiquated. And so I would just point out that it can be tremendously cumbersome and take a great deal of effort. Although I will say in Yamaha County, we absolutely do it, but it is a hand tally process. So I just wanted to throw that out as a comment.
Point is well taken. Your data system, the Doc 400 is, I don't know if people are still alive that built it. So yeah, we recognize the challenges and having to hand tally data. Thank you for raising that. Other comments? All right. Would someone be willing to entertain a motion to accept the GRC recommended allotted amounts according to the tables presented on this slide, except for Deschutes, Douglas, Lane, Multnomah, Washington, and Yamhill counties?
So moved. Commissioner Beach?
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Right. Motion made by Commissioner Beach, seconded by Commissioner Perosa. Roll call, please, Jenny.
Commissioner Beach,
Yes.
Commissioner Freeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner McPherson,
Yes.
Commissioner Norton,
Yes.
Commissioner Perosa,
Yes.
and Chair Solomon.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right. Would someone be willing to make a motion to accept the GRC recommended allotted amount, which is Deschutes, $462,392 for Deschutes County?
So moved. Commissioner Beach?
Is there a second?
I'll second. Commissioner
right.
Perosa.
Motion made by Commissioner Beach, seconded by Commissioner Perosa. Roll call, please. Jenny.
Commissioner Beach,
Yes.
Commissioner Freeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
I'll abstain.
Commissioner McPherson,
Yes.
Commissioner Norton,
Yes.
Commissioner Perosa,
Yes.
and Chair Solomon.
Yes.
And that passes.
Next up is Douglas County. Would someone be willing to make a motion to accept the GRC recommended amount of $277,392 for Douglas County?
I so move. It's Commissioner Harris.
Is there a second?
I'll second. Commissioner Beach?
Right. Motion made by Commissioner Harris, seconded by Commissioner Beach. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Beach,
Yes.
Commissioner Freeman,
Abstain.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner McPherson,
Yes.
Commissioner Norton,
Yes.
Commissioner Perosa,
Yes.
and Chair Solomon.
Yes.
And that passes.
All right. Lane County. Would someone be willing to make a motion to accept the GRC recommended allotment in the amount of $594,624 for Lane County?
So moved, Commissioner Beach.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, motion made by Commissioner Beach, seconded by Commissioner Harris. Roll call, please, Jenny.
Commissioner Beach,
Yes.
Commissioner Freeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner McPherson,
Yes.
Commissioner Norton,
Yes.
Commissioner Perosa,
I abstain.
and Chair Solomon.
I abstain.
Right, and that passes.
Right, on to Multnomah County. Will someone make a motion to accept their GRC recommended allocation in the amount of $764,945?
I so move, Chair.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Was that Commissioner Norton? The second? Okay, great. Motion made by Commissioner Perosa, seconded by Commissioner Norton. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Beach,
Yes.
Commissioner Freeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner McPherson,
Abstain?
Commissioner Norton,
Yes.
Commissioner Perosa,
Yes.
and Chair Solomon.
Yes.
That
On to
passes.
Washington County. Would someone be willing to make a motion to accept their GRC recommended funding in the amount of $371,007?
I'll move.
Right, is there a second?
I'll
I'll
second.
second.
All right, there we go. All right, we have a motion made by Commissioner Harris, seconded by Commissioner Beach. All those in favor, oh, actually, roll call, please.
Commissioner Beach,
Yes.
Commissioner Freeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner McPherson,
Abstain?
Commissioner Norton,
Yes.
Commissioner Perosa,
Yes.
and Chair Solomon.
Yes.
Passes.
All right, last one, Yamhill County. Would someone be willing to make a motion to accept the GRC recommended amount of funding, which is $277,050?
Also move.
All right.
So Freeman, I'll second.
All right. So motion made by Commissioner Norton, seconded by Commissioner Freeman. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Beach,
I abstain.
Commissioner Freeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner McPherson,
Yes.
Commissioner Norton,
Yes.
Commissioner Perosa,
Yes.
and Chair Solomon.
Yes.
Passes.
All right. Lindsay, do we need to pass evaluation plan funding? Oh, looks like that's coming up next. Did you have a question, Commissioner Beach?
Thank you, Chair. Very quick, I'm just confirming the amounts that we see that we have all granted and agreed upon for all these counties, confirming that 10% will be allocated to our non-for-profit local victims
Mhm.
services. I know they're quite anxious to hear what the result is, so thank you very much.
Yeah, great. Thanks.
All right.
Lindsay.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So on to evaluation plans. So just a quick recap of kind of what that process looks like. So staff met with the two counties that decided to retain their 3% evaluation funds. So we met with them before their final applications were submitted to discuss and review their evaluation plans and kind of just have that like, hey, maybe think about this or adding it, or if something isn't maybe clear. So having that before they submit the final application, and of course they submit the final application. The staff committee here at CJC reviewed those and recommended full funding for both Lane and Multnomah County, the two counties that decided to retain funds. So just a quick one-liner for each of those evaluation plans. There's more information in your materials if you'd like to read about the evaluation plans. But Lane County's evaluation plan proposes funding to continue an ongoing research study examining whether individuals receiving permanent supportive housing upon release from prison display superior short and long-term outcomes on housing and recidivism. Multnomah County's plan proposes funding to continue an ongoing research study examining the effects on client success of the inclusion of social workers in pretrial release supervision. And so again, staff committee recommendation is full funding for both. I'll pause there for any questions, Chair.
Great. Any questions? All right, let's take these one at a time because I'm gonna need to abstain on the Lane County one. And I will share that I have been very involved in the Lane County project when I was the former executive director at Sponsors. This is, I think they're 6 years into this study of evaluating the effectiveness of permanent supportive housing. And the data thus far is super compelling. There isn't enough gold standard research out there around the effectiveness of housing interventions for this population. So super excited to see this project continue and ultimately the final findings get published. So I'll share that and acknowledge that I will be abstaining on that vote. If there's no other discussion, I would entertain a motion to approve Lane County's or the staff's recommendation to fund Lane County's 3% research project.
This is Freeman. I'm happy to make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion made by Commissioner Freeman, seconded by Commissioner Harris. Roll call, please, Jenny.
Commissioner Beach,
Yes.
Commissioner Freeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner McPherson,
Yes.
Commissioner Norton,
Yes.
Commissioner Perosa,
I abstain.
and Chair Solomon.
I
You
abstain.
abstain? Okay, and that passes.
All right, that leaves us with Multnomah County's 3% evaluation plan. Would someone be willing to make a motion to approve the staff's evaluation plan recommendation for Multnomah County?
Also move.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, motion made by Commissioner Norton, seconded by Commissioner Perosa. Roll call, please, Jenny.
Commissioner Beach,
Yes.
Commissioner Freeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner McPherson,
Abstain.
Commissioner Norton,
Yes.
Commissioner Perosa,
Yes.
and Chair Solomon,
Yes.
and that passes.
Great. All right, what else do you have for us, Lindsay?
Just a few more slides. Victim services. So a little background on the victim services process. Staff and the victim services advisory panel completed an application review for eligibility. So I'll note that both staff and the victim services advisory panel completed the review with the recommendation to the commission to approve all victim services organizations. So today we're asking the commission to consider and decide on the recommendation to approve each of the organizations rather than on specific funding amounts. statute requires that a minimum of 10%, and Commissioner Beach alluded to this, of each county's award be directed to community-based victim services. So once the commission has made their final award decisions today on the formula and competitive grants, staff will work with each county to complete the corresponding victim services budget sheets. So with that, you'll see very similar charts, but slightly different recommendation. And then we'll go through a couple slides here for each organization by county. So I will flag Deschutes County here. The Victim Service Advisory Panel did provide some feedback, again, not affecting their recommendation, but just that they would like to see some KPIs or just programmatic reporting in their usual reporting around this program to understand its impact. They identified it as a unique way to approach this, direct services, victim services, community-based organizations type process. So just wanting to kind of see that and see if it's replicable potentially in other counties. And this is our last slide. So I'll pause here for any questions. Then as usual, we have our optional motion language on the next slide.
Commissioner Prosa.
Not a comment, but I do want to disclose that I'm a board member of Kids First Child Advocacy Center, so I will be abstaining on that.
Great, thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right, is someone willing to make a motion to approve the recommendations for each victim service organization previously listed, except for those in Deschutes, Douglas, Lane, Multnomah, Washington, and Yamhill counties?
So I'll make the motion, but I'll also include Douglas County. I've got no conflict there. I'm not part of those groups.
Okay, great. Let's throw Douglas into the big group.
This is Commissioner Norton seconds.
Okay, great. Motion made by Commissioner Freeman, seconded by Commissioner Norton. All those in favor signify by, oops, wait a minute. Roll call, Jenny. Sorry. Stealing your thunder again.
Commissioner Beach?
Yes.
Commissioner Freeman?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner McPherson?
Yes.
Commissioner Norton?
Yes.
Commissioner Perosa?
Yes.
And Chair Solomon.
Yes.
Right. Passes unanimously.
All right. Someone willing to make a motion to approve the recommendation for the victim services organizations in Deschutes County?
I would
so
so
move.
move. No.
Okay, it sounds like we got a motion by Commissioner Perosa, seconded by Commissioner Norton. Roll call, please, Jen.
Commissioner Beach?
Yes.
Commissioner Freeman?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
I'll abstain.
Commissioner McPherson,
Yes.
Commissioner Norton,
Yes.
Commissioner Perosa,
Yes.
and Chair Solomon.
Yes.
And that passes.
All right, that moves us down to Lane County. Someone willing to make a motion to approve the recommendations for the victim services organizations in Lane County.
I'll move.
Is there a second?
I'll
Freeman,
second
I'll
Commissioner Beach.
All right, I'll give it to Commissioner Beach. So motion made by Commissioner Harris, seconded by Commissioner Beach. Roll call, please, Jane.
Commissioner Beach,
Yes.
Commissioner Freeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner McPherson,
Yes.
Commissioner Norton,
Yes.
Commissioner Perosa,
I abstain.
and Chair Solomon.
I abstain.
Right, and that passes.
All right, next up is, let's do Multnomah and Washington together, since I think we just have one abstention coming from Carl there. Is someone willing to make a motion to approve the recommendations for the victim services organizations in Multnomah and Washington counties?
I'll move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, motion made by Commissioner Harris, second by Commissioner Norton. Roll call, please, Jenny.
Commissioner Beach,
Yes.
Commissioner Freeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner McPherson,
Abstain.
Commissioner Norton,
Yes.
Commissioner Perosa,
Yes.
and Chair Solomon.
Yes.
And
Right.
that passes.
Last but not least, Yamhill County. Is someone willing to make a motion to approve the recommendation for the victim services organizations in Yamhill County?
Commissioner Perosa so moves.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Right. Motion made by Commissioner Perosa, seconded by Commissioner Norton. Roll call, please, Jenny.
Commissioner Beach,
I abstain.
Commissioner Freeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner McPherson,
Yes.
Commissioner Norton,
Yes.
Commissioner Perosa,
Yes.
and Chair Solomon.
Yes.
That passes.
All right. Anything else, Lindsay? Yeah.
Just a few comments for everybody's situational awareness. So we'll have our 10-day protest period and then awards, kind of pending all of that. So early October. And then as I'm sure all of you are familiar with, we'll have that supplemental round because we had 34 counties out of 36 apply. So there are remaining funds. We'll meet with the GRC and the commission at a later date to be determined to kind of discuss that and start that process. Same with the remitted evaluation fund. So the funds remitted to the CJC and what that could look like and how that could be used. So that is it from me on the 25-27, or excuse me, yes. So I'm tired too. 25-27 JRP grant.
All right. Thank you for all your hard work. I think we still have the Clackamas County adjustment. Is that, you going to carry that too, Lindsay?
I am. So you still get to hear from me. Different biennium, same grant program. So we'll move into the Clackamas County's adjustment request. So as the commission is familiar, adjustment requests come before you all if there's a reallocation request above 10%, or if a program is substantially changing. This request is a above 10% request, so no real programmatic changes. Let's see. So for Clackamas County, all funds are going to remain within the existing previously approved programs. The county is moving funds out of contractual services. This is due to vacancies and retirements, contract changes, and shifts in billing requirements for specific services. Those dollars are being reallocated to personnel, equipment, and administrative categories to better align with current programmatic needs. So on the personnel side, the county's goal is to strengthen existing programs by expanding the pretreatment jail program by opening a new dorm for women and providing gender-specific services, increasing use of pre-sentencing assessments to support downward departure sentencing, and improve coordination within their substance abuse program, and also to enhance the CSAP experience with more individualized interventions and additional personnel. For equipment, this reallocation of funds is going to be for medication lockers for CSAP and for software Qualtrics to strengthen evaluation of program outcomes. On the administrative side, the LPSIC coordinator role has shifted from a contract to a county staff position. So staff hasn't seen any real issues with that, just kind of a realignment there. And that's it, Chair. That's all I have for you for the adjustment requests. And as usual, I'll pause for questions, and then there's optional motion language for you all.
All right, Commissioner Norton, go ahead.
Sure. 2 questions. This was from their formula allocation,
Correct.
or is it their competitive?
This is from their formula.
Okay, so I'm assuming that all these are consistent with any requirements we had in the previous biennium.
Correct. So this is within their already approved JRP programs.
Thank you. That's all I had.
Thank you for the question.
Any other questions? All right, are you looking for a motion at this point, Lindsay?
Yes, Chair.
Yep. Is there someone willing to make a motion to move to approve Clackamas County's JRP adjustment requests?
So moved, Commissioner Beach.
And I'll second Commissioner Harris.
All right, motion made by Commissioner Beach, seconded by Commissioner Harris. A roll call, please, Jenny.
Commissioner Beach,
Yes.
Commissioner Freeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner McPherson,
Yes.
Commissioner Norton,
Yes.
Commissioner Perosa,
Yes.
and Chair Solomon.
Yes.
And that passes unanimously.
All right. Well, I think we may have set a CJC record, at least in my tenure, for the largest number of motions in a meeting. And hopefully we won't have that many in the future, but we, because of timing and other reasons, we had these 3 big grant programs before us. So thank everybody for all of their work. I was worried that we would be able to get through all of this in our allotted 3 hours. So I'm tickled that we are done with a few minutes to spare, but I do want to check in with Director Keck and see if he has any updates or anything he wants to share before we adjourn.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Want to second that and appreciate everybody's effort on this major lift. I'd say we're at high tide. October also has a pretty heavy agenda, but then we'll start slowly making a decline through the end of the year. But we do have a lot of work to do. I really appreciate the background work that you all were doing, review applications, the materials as we drafted new ways to bring you up to speed on these programs for an efficient meeting like this. So again, just complimenting you all. And of course, putting a shout out to staff who've worked underneath those tight timelines as well to present that to you all. So a big thanks to everybody. I will be reaching out with all of you just to get some input so we can continue to refine that process as we work through some of these heavier agendas through the remainder of the year. So look for an email from me just to kind of get some of that. Hearing loud and clear already, of course, the timing is tough. And so we will try to get ahead of what we can as best we can as we move through all of these. And so with that, the only other thing to point out is the reminder that next meeting is in person. Jenny will be forwarding some information related to that meeting to you all soon, but we intend and we hope that we'll have all of you there and present with us in McMinnville, hosted by Commissioner Beach. on October 21st.
Looking forward to it. I love the roadshow tours. And again, I just want to restate and echo what you shared, Ryan. And in particular, I found the staff memos to be really helpful, particularly when we're wading through 36 county applications. It's a lot of material. So really appreciated all the work that was put into synthesizing those applications and giving us something that we could look at and, without having to spend endless time going through each and every application. So thank you. All right, unless there's any further business, I will adjourn the meeting and give you all 5 minutes of your day back. Thank you. See you in
Bye,
October.
everyone.
Thank you all.
Take care, everyone.
Yep. Bye-bye.